All right, welcome to this episode of the Experience Project. Today we're talking about optics and binoculars in particular. Binoculars are an area that you can go budget, you can spend a lot of money on, and I think really it's important to just identify the type of hunting that you're going to be doing and what the demand will be of the optics. Some hunts don't really require that much. You could, if you're in Missouri and you're coming out to Colorado for your first ever elk hunt, don't read forums and go, oh my gosh, I'm not going to kill an elk if I don't have Swarovski NL Pures with me, right? Like that hunt isn't going to be super demanding of your optic. Even a Dall sheep hunt, those are white animals in kind of gray, black country. They're pretty easy to spot. You don't need the absolute best glass when it comes to binocular for just seeing Dall sheep. Mountain goats, same thing, right? Elk, big-bodied animals. Mule deer, bighorn sheep, brown country, then it's like, okay, maybe I do want every advantage I can possibly get, and you can start justifying something like an NL Pure. But in general here, this is kind of just a good sample of everything on the market. I actually own all of these. It's one part of the Experience Project that we are incredibly fortunate being on the SNS archery side, right? Like we have access to all these glass and I'm able to take them out on different hunts and have a lot of experience using different things where I can certainly just talk from a very practical point of view, like when it matters, the features I'm looking for, what's going to kind of actually make a difference on the outcome of your hunt. In general though, you got like your compact binoculars. So these are 8x32 ELs from Swarovski. Then you jump up to a 10x42, which I have no doubt is by far the best selling Western hunting binocular on the market. Everybody makes a 10x42. It's, all the optics we sell through SNS Archery, by far the most popular. Then the middle one here is the Swarovski EL range. So these are ballistic range-finding binoculars. So we'll talk about more of that in depth in a little bit. Then you move into another kind of new category. Been around for a while, but SIG has really done a good job with these image stabilized binoculars. So there's actually a battery in here. You flip that switch on and through some black magic, all of a sudden the image stops shaking and you get a really clear, steady image just hand holding with one hand. It's pretty incredible. Then you move into your big glass. So your 15x56 and 18x56s. So that's on a tripod, glassing over big country. That's where those kind of fit in. Next, I'll just go for features that I'm looking for in a binocular. Obviously, all of them are going to have twist-up eye cups. Very common for people to assume. I see this all the time. They grab a pair, they twist the eye cups all the way out, and they think that's how you're supposed to use them. These are simply just to adjust for your eyes, whether you're wearing glasses, the shape of your brow. You're just trying to get a full field of view, trying to get the full field of view, meaning that if you have them all the way in, you might be getting too much where you're getting black rings around it. But if you twist these all the way out, you're going to lose field of view. You're going to get more like you're looking through a toilet paper roll, right? So you want to find where you're getting the widest field of view without getting the black rings. For me, the way I hold binoculars, the way my brow is shaped, how they kind of rest up against my eyes, I typically run either flush or just one click out. But it's important to note to adjust that for yourself and don't just assume you need to twist them all the way out. Another feature that I personally really want in a binocular is a locking diopter. So the diopter is the ability on these ELs, you pop that out, you twist this left and right, and that is individually adjusting the right side of the binocular for focus. So the way to set that, you get out in the field, find something at like 100 yards, it's really high contrast. Typically I'm looking at like tree bark or something like that. If you still have the eye cups installed, install the eye cup on the right side. Look through the left, keep both eyes open so you're not kind of squinting and changing your view a little bit. Keep both eyes open, focus, use the main focus wheel and focus that left barrel, get that razor sharp. Don't touch anything, but open up the right eye cap, close the left. Now you're going to go to the diopter adjustment. So I'm going to pop that out without twisting the focus wheel. That's very important. And then I'm going to adjust that right eye until it's laser focused, pop it back in, and then everything's good to go. Some binoculars don't have a locking diopter. When Swirl came out with the NL Pures, it kind of blew me away that they didn't have that built in. It's simply this little raised tab right here, and that slides back and forth. Super annoying, especially when you're running in a chest pouch. It's very common when I'm using these because the optics, the glass in there is freaking amazing. On hunts that demand a lot, I'm using that binocular. But I'll just be glassing and all of a sudden like, oh, the image looks fuzzy, and I look down and go, oh man, I bumped that, it's out of adjustment. On the bottom side here is where it's at. where you can see the actual adjustment that you're on. I know that I'm -1. Any good quality optic, I'm almost always -1. If you get into the lesser quality, I'd say like sub $500 binocular range, then you might find some inconsistencies there. But any good quality optic, I'm -1. Other features I'm looking for, wide field of view. I think field of view is an underrated statistic. I think it's actually more important than magnification. And that's where I'm a really big fan of the compact. So if you take, go look at like a Vortex Razor binocular, pull up the specs on their 10x32, 10x42, and 10x50. I think it'd be very common for people to assume that 10x50, that really big objective lens. Like this is a 56, that's a 42. You can see the difference in size there. I think guys assume that 50mm just by looking at it, like, oh, that's bigger glass, so I'm going to be able to see more country. It's actually always the opposite. 10x50 is going to have a smaller field of view than 10x42, and 10x42 is going to have a smaller field of view than 10x32. The advantage to a wider field of view is you're seeing more country at once. 9 times out of 10, when you spot an animal, it's going to be catching movement, not the fact that there's just a deer standing still. Typically, those blend in really well. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. You're looking at something and the deer's been in the middle the whole time, but all of a sudden it moves its head or twitches its tail, it takes a step, and you're, oh, there's a deer right there. So you're seeing movement, and be able to see more country at once is more of an advantage to me than being able to be zoomed in tight on a certain object. As far as magnification goes, along with wider field of view and the 32mm compacts, or like NL Pures are a great example. Just how they design these binoculars, they have a much wider field of view when you're comparing like 10x42 NL Pure to another company's 10x42. But magnification is a huge one. I think most guys should be running 8x32s or 8x42s simply because the less magnified the image is, the less imperfections of the glass show up. So an 8 is always going to have a better resolution, apples to apples, than a 10 because the image isn't as magnified. So you're going to get clearer, sharper images. You can kind of relate to this with a spine scope. Sometimes when you stop at like 30 or 40x, it's like this real nice sharp image. And if you have a lower quality scope, you zoom in, all of a sudden things get fuzzy. Well, that's kind of on a bigger scale of what's happening just even between 8s and 10s, right? So that less magnified image going to have higher resolution. You're just going to spot more game, in my opinion. 10x42 again is going to be the most selling. When you're hunting like mule deer, you're in Idaho, you're looking over a lot of country, you're putting these on a tripod. It's certainly, I'm not going to argue too much that it's a bad choice. I do think it's an all-around choice that's okay. I just think most guys would be better off going down to the 32s. You're going to see more game. We all get sucked into that bigger is better mentality, right? And I don't think that's the case with binoculars. I like that lower magnification. Another feature that I'm looking for is the ability to mount to a tripod. It is absolutely essential for you to always strive to get your binoculars stable. Like lower magnification is going to help with that. Just getting some type of brace. So if I see an animal, instead of just trying to handhold my binoculars and look at it, I'm going to immediately sit down on my butt, brace my elbows on my knees, get that image stable. If I'm in country, if I'm archery hunting and I can't do that, I'll rest my bow limb on my left thigh, hold onto the handle, and then put the binoculars on top of the cam. Be a kind of a way to get braced. The best way to do it is put your binoculars on a tripod. So how all binoculars mount to a tripod can be different. In general, there's going to be like a little cap that is going to be right here at the bridge of the binocular. You pop that off. It's usually just a little plastic insert with the company's logo on it. There's going to be threads inside of there where you can take, certain companies have, it's going to be a male stud thread that's going to thread into there. This is the Swarovski adapter. There's lots of other ones on the market that will thread into that, and that allows you to mount to a tripod. Sometimes the manufacturers don't include it. Picking on the NL Pures, for whatever reason, they decided that they weren't going to include that into the design, which blows my mind. But there is a company out there, I can't remember the name of this, a little adapter, but there's just like a thread and a half that you have to use Loctite and put that on there, and it works. It's a little sketchy, but it has been working for me for a couple of years. Other options out there, if you don't have standard threads, and the bridge of the binocular is like Kestrel's a company that's making these adapters. Wiser Precision makes some adapters that basically just clamp onto the barrel of the binocular and then allow you to mount to the tripod there. There's a lot of different ones out there. Asiac Equipment's another one that makes an adapter. One thing I am looking for when I mount to a tripod is the ability to tilt the binocular inside of the tripod or on the mount. So as I'm glassing, if I'm uphill, downhill, and all of a sudden I see something over here and I pan the tripod over there, I want to be able to tilt the binocular, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the Swarovski adapter. It's one of my favorites. It's a touch heavier than I would prefer, but it's pretty solid. You simply have the male post, slide in there, pop that up, and it's on. And I have the ability here, flip that around, to tilt the binocular left and right. So when you're running a typical pan head that doesn't have that ability to tilt, this is really critical. If you're running a ball head, which in my opinion, I've yet to find a good ball head that I like, they all, I think being able to pan smoothly and when I'm gridding country and be able to have smooth movements is way more important. Some ball heads can be a little bit lighter. There's a couple advantages if you're going to shoot off the tripod. We'll do a whole other episode on tripods, so we'll get to that later. But in general, I want a really smooth pan head, and then the binocular mount, I want the ability to tilt into it. So those are the general features that I'm looking for. So wide field of view, locking diopter, smooth focus wheel. Obviously, they're all going to have twist-up eye cups. I really like these small compact ones. I think they're underrated. In good quality glass, I am at zero disadvantage of this EL 8x32 than I would be, say, a 10x50. Technically, a 10x50, you basically take the objective, divide it by the magnification, that's your exit pupil. So 10x50 is a 5mm exit pupil, where the 8x32 is going to be a 4. Generally, the pupil of your eye isn't going to be much more than 4. So sometimes the binocular can actually take in more light than your eye can accept. So I really don't see a place at all for 50mm binoculars on the market. I think they're really overkill, and especially as you're talking about good quality glass. So, I would say, as a rough idea, anything that's like $1,000 or more, these 32s are incredible. They let in more than enough light. I can see well past shooting light, dang near till it's almost pitch black outside. And I just think it's a really, really good option. So that's different features I'm looking for. Kind of specifically talk about these ones now here. So these are the Swarovski EL ranges. So it's a ballistic range-finding binocular. You're going to have your ballistics built into that, as well as the ability to range. One downside to these, and why I don't take it on every single hunt, is the optic isn't quite as good. There's a kind of a limitation on the coatings that they can put on all the different layers of glass inside for the laser to transmit and come back through. It basically cannot, at this point, be an NL pure. The glass is still really, really good. I think it's, for years I ran a 10x42 SLC. I thought those things were absolutely fantastic. I compared those side by side when I first got these, and I thought these were better glass than those SLCs. But when you compare them side by side with NL pure, not quite the same. Again, depending on the type of hunt I'm doing, the type of demand that's on the glass. Obviously with S&S and the access to all this stuff, I can pick and choose what I want. But if you're a rifle hunter, these things are absolutely fantastic. I'm plugging in my bullet, the weight of the bullet, the ballistic coefficient of the bullet, the velocity of the bullet as it comes out of my gun. There's a handful of other variables that that's going to be in the app for, like Swarovski has the specific app for these, and then that syncs over to the binocular. I'm out there elk hunting, I see a ridge or I see an elk and go, oh, what's the range? I just click a button and then it tells me what to shoot for. So it's going to say 420 yards, dial 7.5 MOA. I can make a very fast, accurate shot. Takes all that guessing out, takes steps out of the process. It's not, oh, there's an animal, put my binos away, get out my rangefinder, try to relocate the animal. It's going to be a more shaky image because I'm trying to hold it with one hand and get a range. I think this really streamlines the process. So, with everything in life, especially everything in backpacking, there's pros and cons, and you just got to decide what works for you, what doesn't. I encourage you just get out and try this. If your buddy's got a pair of binoculars, borrow them for a hunt, try them out. Try to do the best you can with side-by-side comparisons. So don't take one pair of binoculars out one day and then the next week and take a different pair out, because the atmospheric conditions play such a role in what you perceive the glass to, the quality of the glass to be, how sharp it is, what the image looks like, that you really need to have them side-by-side. So that rangefinder binoculars, SIG makes some, Vortex has their Fury, I believe, Revic has some that are really, really nice. The Swarovski EL ranges to me have the best glass out of all of them, but the worst range capabilities. The SIGs, we just got their new 10Ks in stock. They are incredible. Like, you push the button, it's an instant reading. You very rarely get, like, you know, with the EL ranges I'll have to push the button like two or three times to get the range. With those SIGs, they're fantastic. You just step down in quality of glass, and you're already taking a step down from, say, like really good glass like an NL Pure. So something you just got to judge for yourself, what you want, what's important to you. Image stabilized binoculars. 6 Hour has been crushing it with these Zulu 6s. It's kind of a relatively new category to the market. Essentially, there's a battery in here that runs on one AA battery. You pull up, you focus on the image, and you switch them on. And it goes from a very shaky image. Right now, we'll dump in some footage we just took up in the mountains when we were shooting a spine scope review the other day. But you flick those on. It actually has 2 modes, like a scan mode and the target mode. You go into that target mode, and it's incredible. The image is rock solid, stable. Personally, these aren't where there's enough downgrade in the field of view and quality of glass that they're not quite to the point yet where I'm going to take them on every single hunt. They have a time and a place. It's a very active hunt, you're up, you're moving all day long. I think they're fantastic. Mark and I went on a mule deer hunt last year. I packed these. He packed, I think he had some 8.5 by 42 ELs. We kind of swapped back and forth throughout the hunt. And it's like, at times, these were a way better tool to have in your hand when you were up and moving. We had hiked like 10 miles up this river in a big canyon, and you're just, you know, I could just stop at any point and really effectively glass a hill. Where for Mark to have that same effectiveness, he'd probably have to sit down, get a tripod out, and put his binos on it. So the ability to quickly have a really nice stable image where you're going to see game is fantastic. But again, there's enough downgrade in the glass that if I'm sitting up on top of a ridge at a glassing point looking over a lot of country, that I definitely want a higher quality glass, something with a wider field of view, something that's really sharp, really crisp, edge to edge. That's another point I skipped over. Edge to edge clarity is something that, you know, depending on a hunt that demands a lot of the optic, is something that you really want to pay attention to. Generally, you get what you pay for. The cheaper end stuff, it may have a really nice image right in the middle of the glass, but the outer ring, usually it could be on bad glass, it'd be like the outer third is blurry. You put those on a tripod where, you know, that's steady and you're using your eyes to kind of scan around in the binocular. Your eyes are going to struggle because like the middle's focused, but the edge isn't, so it's going to bounce back and forth. Your eyes are constantly trying to get that to be in focus, and it's going to give you a headache. You can glass for, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but then you got to get out of the glass, take a break from it, let your eyes kind of settle down, and then you just missed a buck that stepped out of the trees or something for a second. So the ability to stay behind the glass on those hunts that demand a lot of it is something to pay attention to. So back to the image stabilizers, these are awesome. In 2 or 10 years, whenever a company can figure out to put this technology, and this glass all in one package, that is going to be a truly like revolutionary product. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. It's not there yet. If you got the budget, I would say get the SIGs. It wouldn't be my only pair of binoculars. If I only had, you know, X amount of dollars to spend, I was going to own one pair. I don't think it's the answer yet. I think some people might argue with me. It's getting close, but it's not quite there yet. Big glass, so 15 by 56s. SIG makes these. Swirl makes an SLC 15 by 56. Vortex, Maven make 18 by 56s. Awesome glass. They are, you know, these are all ones that you're going to run in your binocular pouch, have with you. These are in the backpack. Like it would be very impractical. These are so big, so heavy, and also such high magnification that hand holding them really isn't an effective tool in my opinion. These are pretty much strictly for mounting on a tripod, getting to a glassing point, looking over a lot of country, and they are a fantastic tool when that application arises, right? Like my Frank Church Bighorn sheep tag I had a few years back, I packed these, even though they're big and heavy. To me, that pro and con of, you know, the con being packing the extra weight and bulk in my pack versus the pro having big glass, because that's 5+ miles where you're picking apart country. It's really smoky, really hazy, and frankly, I don't like to be behind a spotting scope that often. How I use a spine scope is I find the animal in the binocular, and then I zoom in with a spine scope to determine what it is. If it's a Dall sheep hunt, you got to determine legality, right? Like, is he full curl ram? So The big glass is fantastic, just not something that you're going to run in your chest. So it's kind of in its own category. That pretty much sums it up. Again, if you're in the market, I really like compact binoculars, especially as you're talking about higher quality stuff. Random thing I forgot, the ability with these SIGs, and even don't overlook the ability to do digiscoping through your binoculars. The ability to do that with the image stabilizers is incredible. Going that deer hunt that Mark and I were last year, we had a badger at like 100 yards, and I got some really awesome footage of that thing. I was on a solo elk hunt and at a river, and there's some river otters in there that I filmed. It's really cool. Certainly you can run video with these things. We'll dump in some footage there showing that too as well, just videoing different stuff, and the ability to, like, after the fact, go into the video and zoom in and get a really nice magnified image of what you're looking at. It's pretty fantastic. All right, well, that pretty much sums up everything that's on the market. I think it's really important to identify what the demands optically are of your hunt. Some hunts justify it, some hunts don't, right? Archery elk, not super high demand, depending on the type of country you're in. Certainly here in Idaho, just hunting timber, you could get by with just about anything. Bighorn sheep tag, mule deer tags, like brown gray animals and brown gray country, you certainly can start to justify spending a lot more money on your binocular. Going back to binocular versus spotting scope, if you don't have either, you have to buy both for an upcoming hunt. And the hunt is certainly a hunt where legality comes into play. So you're, again, I gotta go back to a Dall sheep hunt, that's the first example, where it's gotta be a full coil ram. I'm gonna spend that money on that spotting scope and get by with a lesser quality binocular, because that spotting scope is gonna be what actually determines my decision on shooting that animal or not, where the binocular just helped me find that animal. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Experience Project. We're looking forward to many more to come.